Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to part two of my tutorial for the coding assignment in Severance Chapter 14. And in part two, this is going to kind of correspond to exercise two in your coding assignment. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a program that does the reporting on states and their land area in square miles, their water area in square miles, and their total area in square miles. Okay, and uh, again, I'm not recommending that you type these in as you follow the tutorial, but rather that you kind of follow along the way I'm doing it in the tutorial. So the one that we're creating in the tutorial is called Create State Area Reports using Basic class. So I'm just going to copy this from my practice tutorial project, and I am going to paste it into my somehow I seem to have closed my actual tutorial project, so I'm just going to open that actual tutorial right there. Let's open that in a new window. Ah, so my basic states was there, and I'm just going to paste this into my tutorial project. And here it is. It's called Create State Area Reports using uh, the basic class. And it's already open for me. Okay, so what am I going to do? Well, this is a typical reporting program. So again, it begins with the comment with the name of the class. Uh, Although I can see this one should probably say create state area reports using evolve class. This one should say using basic class. A lot of different versions of it using basic class. So you can make that correction. Okay. And then there's an import of the module, and we're saying from my basic states, which we just created, import the state class. We're going to use it. So that's how we get the right version of the state class. Okay, so what's the design of the reporting program? Well, we've done these before. We did one back when we did the coding assignment for Zell Chapter 11. We did a program a lot like this. Uh, it was reporting on um, a bunch of data that we put into instances of a class. We stored those instances in a list. We sorted the list two different ways, and we created two different reports in different sort orders. We're doing the same deal here, not very different at all. Okay. Okay, so uh, we have the main, which has our high level code. Okay, so let's go through that. Um, so we in the main we create a variable called states that is going to hold the list is going to hold the reference to the list that we create from the input file in a method called get, function called get states. So get states is down here. Okay, so once we get that list created, we're going to sort it by state name. Okay, so we're going to call the sort method on the list object states. And because instances of classes that we've learned how to do or that we're going to have in our course, they don't have a natural order. They don't know what their natural order is. They don't have methods in them to compare themselves to each other. So every time you sort them, you need to provide a key. And the key in this case is the name of a function called byStateName. Okay, and that's down at the bottom. ByStateName. Okay, and that's not very hard to do. The sort method of the list class, it's one of the Python classes that implements list objects. The sort method, when you pass it a key, it's a reference to this to a function name. So we have the function name by state name, and it passes an instance of state that, of course, is one of the items in the list. And all this does is it returns the name field. So it essentially says, oh, if you want to sort it by name, here's the value that you sort on. Okay. And again, if we look up in the top code, we say key by state name. Notice that it's just the name of the function. It doesn't have paren. Okay, that would be calling the function. Okay, and sometimes in our text editor, it'll automatically, if we do autocomplete, it'll automatically give us the parens. That creates a bug. So when we're giving the key, we want to pass it the name of the function, and sort is going to call the function. Okay, this is just our way of informing the list class, the sort method, what function to call. Okay, and then we're going to print the report. Okay, so we've got a standard function that prints reports in some sort order with some appropriate title. And what do we pass to that? Well, we pass in the list that holds the instances of the state objects, plus the title of the, we were up here. The list states, and then the title of the report. So, of course, we've sorted it into state name order, so the title is by state name. Okay. And then, of course, when we've got that done, we're going to sort it again. The sort key is going to be by total area, reverse equal true, because we want it in a descending order of a total area. So let's look at this by total area function. It's down at the very bottom. Okay, and what you have to remember here is that total area is not an instance variable. It's provided by the worker method, calculate total area in square miles. So whereas up here where we were sorted by the state name, which is an instance variable, we actually returned the value of a field, an instance variable. While here in by total area, we have to remember to call the method. Okay, so it's state instance dot calculate total area in square miles paren paren. We're actually calling that to get the total value. So that's a difference in what we're doing for the state name and what we're doing for the total area. Okay, so that's how it gets sorted up here in the main. So we sort it a different way. Reverse equal true is going to sort it into descending order. So it puts it in the opposite order. That's a handy way to do that. And then we're going when we call the print report function, we're going to do states by a descending total area in square miles. Okay, so how does that look? Well, it looks pretty good. Let's look at this. That's the main logic. Okay, are we ready to test it yet? Well, no. I want to show you the rest of the code before we do the testing. We're doing the testing by inspection here. Okay. If we were going to build this from the top down, though, we could probably create stub or dummy versions of all the lower level functions, and we could be testing it as we go along. I don't want my tutorial to be quite that long. So what's the first thing that we call from main? Well, get states. And let's take a look at that code. Well, it opens the input file. It prompts for the file name. It opens the input file with encoding UTF-8. That's been very good for getting the characters to look exactly like we'd like. It creates an empty list called my states. Okay, it's different from the list called states. The scope of the variable states means it can be seen inside the main, but it can't be seen inside any of the other functions. Okay, so how do we get this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to build this in a local variable in get states called my states, and then we're going to return that as the value returned from the function, and that's going to get assigned to states up here where we do the function call. Okay, and how do we do this? Well, we do it pretty easily. We just use the for loop to iterate over all the lines in the file. We say for line in file, okay, which we've already opened with the right encoding. And we're going to, that gets a line at a time and it puts it into the variable line. And then we're going to split the line, in this case, and only this case, not in your case when you do your version. I'm going to split on the semicolon. I wanted you to see that being done. In your version, in the exercise, you're splitting on the comma. Okay, so be aware of that. And this thing, line split, gets unpacked into the state name, the land area as a string, and the water area as a string. You know, when we read input records, you have to remember that we always get a string, okay? We don't get the binary version. You know, we don't get an int or we don't get a float. And then what do we do is we add this instance to the list within a call to append on my states. Okay, and then we call the constructor for state inside that append. So we construct a new state with the state name. We use float to convert the land area as string to a proper float version of the land area. We use float to convert the water area as string to a proper float uh, version of the water area. So we do all those, we close the in file, and then we return the list. Now, in this current version, we're using the basic version of the state class. It doesn't do any error checking uh, of the values that we use to construct these. So could it have a state name that's the empty string? Yeah, and we have a version of the test file that actually looks like that. Could it have negative versions for the land area or the water area? Yeah, we've got some dirty data for that. But in this kind of basic naive version of the class, we just let that go. So when we're using the basic version of the class, we're not doing error checking, and we're trusting the user to give us um, valid input. Okay? All right. So what happens next? Well, the next thing that happens after we get the states is we do the sorting and the printing. We know how the sorting works. How about the printing? That's the last thing that we haven't seen here. The printing is pretty straightforward, okay? Um, um, we get in a list of state instances, and we get in a report title, and the list of state instances has already been sorted into the right order. And so the title is going to reflect that order. It's either going to be by state name or by descending total area in square miles. Okay? All right. So what do we do? Well, first of all, we print the title. Okay? And we use this format string to center the title in a 60 character wide report. Okay, what are the 60 characters? Well, we're going to see in a minute that the name of the state is 15 characters. The land area is 15. The water area is 15. The total area is 15. So 3 times 15 plus 15. 4 times 15, 60. So this is the formatting string that we say format the title in a 60 characters wide string. So that centers the title. And then we have two prints down here. One for the first column header line. So we say state, land area, water area, total area. One for the second one, we don't have anything under the word state, but then we have parentheses square miles under land area, water area, total area, and this sort of implies in square miles. Okay. Well, what about the detail lines of the report? A detail line shows one record, one instance. Okay. Well, what we do is we just take this list that we got and we use a for loop to iterate over it. And we say for state in these states. And then we print a detail line. Okay. Now you'll see that the formatting on these is a little different. In this case, we've got 2 decimal places. So we don't have any decimal places for the names, so that's just a left justified 15. Uh, the amounts are right justified. They're 15 columns wide. They have a comma separator, and they've got two decimal places on the red side. That's dot 2F. Okay, so that's the format string. And then in the parens of format, we have all the fields that we want to print. The name, uh, the state name, the area, land area in square miles, the water area in square miles, and the call to calculate total area in square miles. So what does this look like? Well, let's bring over the test data files. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my other project, and I'm going to copy uh, state area data.txt and dirty state area.txt. So I'm going to copy these two, and I'm going to copy them to my tutorial project. And again, you don't want to be typing data. You don't want to be typing anything at this point in the tutorial. And again, the state area data is clean, separated by semicolons. We usually separate by commas, but here we've got semicolon separated data. It has to do with the history of how I created this. I created this by scraping the data off of a list that was on Wikipedia, a Wikipedia page. And because there were a lot of commas in the initial data, I was ignoring commas, so I used the semicolons to uh, to separate these, and I was too lazy to subsequently turn them back into commas. Okay, that's why when we're doing the reporting program, uh, you'll notice that when we split the line, and in this case we're splitting on a semicolon. In your case, in your exercise, you're going to be splitting on a comma because your data is not semicolon separated. It's comma separated data, which is more common to find. So this is the clean data, okay? And then we have dirty state area data. And this has just got some errors in it. It's got an empty string for one of the states. It's got a negative value for the water area in Alaska. Okay. Uh, these are things that are going to be caught in the more evolved version of our class that we do in exercise 3, but not the basic area of our class. So when we run a test, okay, here's what we're testing. This is the create state area reports using basic class. When we run a test, well, we're going to first run it. So we're going to say run this. We're going to first run it with state area data. .text. And you'll see here that we have a clean set of reports. Okay, so we have the by state name. We have all the headings the right way up here. It is sorted by state name, just as we want. And by descending total area in square miles, you'll see these descend. The state names are different, although Alaska is at the top of both of them. And these are in the proper order for this. And everything's properly formatted. We have the headings. What we want you to do is we want you to match this kind of character for character. Okay, and use the program that I've given you from the tutorial as kind of a starter, probably to do your code for the one you're doing in your exercise 2. And now I just want to show you, okay, that's what happens when you give it clean data, okay? What happens if you give it dirty data, okay? So let's run this again, okay? And let's pass it, in this case, dirty state area data dot text, and it just runs. So you get no program errors because this very naive and basic version of the class doesn't do any error checking on input data. If you want to give it erroneous values for the initial values when you construct a new state class, it's glad to take them. And the unfortunate result that we get here is um, we get one state that doesn't have any name. It sorts to the top. We get Alaska, which has a negative land area. We have Oklahoma, which has a zero water area. I guess technically that could be true. Um, if you had a state that was absolutely desert, but and then we've got some we've got some dirty data that we're not catching with the basic version of the class, and we just want to be able to demonstrate that. So your program should work with both versions of the input file, both the regular one and the dirty one. The other thing that you don't see here when we run with any version of the input file is you don't see the unit testing from the imported module because it's being imported. It's not being run on its own. So that's another thing that you want to check for in your testing. So that's it for this one. We're all done. So I'm going to say bye.